President and Mrs. Reagan loved being alone together. Camp David and Rancho Del Cielo were havens amid the demands of the presidency. In this video podcast, we'll take a closer look at both retreats as we examine their galleries within the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout his life, Ronald Reagan loved the great outdoors. He bought his first ranch property in the 1940s, and over the years, Nancy Reagan grew to enjoy the pace of life on the family ranches. During their years in the White House, a trip to the ranch or a weekend at the presidential compound at Camp David gave President and Mrs. Reagan precious time together. Both retreats also gave Ronald Reagan a chance to enjoy one of his great passions, riding a horse.
Now, there are a lot of people kind of thinking they're disparaging and doing it, call me today a cowboy. You know, I've never understood what's so bad about being a cowboy. I'm proud of my spurs. I've often said there's nothing better for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse.
Rancho Del Cielo was President and Mrs. Reagan's 688-acre ranch in the hills above Santa Barbara, California. They owned the property, featuring a modest 1,500-square-foot house, from 1974 to 1996. Speaking of the ranch in a newspaper interview, President Reagan said, "That particular place casts a spell on you." Reconnecting with nature inspired Ronald Reagan. Chores on the ranch, such as clearing brush and repairing fences, helped him to relax and keep fit. But Rancho Del Cielo wasn't just for horseback riding and chores. President Reagan was known to deliver radio addresses from this location, and even, on rare occasions, entertain illustrious visitors such as Queen Elizabeth and Mikhail Gorbachev. The nation's business never took a back door while President Reagan was at the ranch. In 1981, President Reagan invited media up to Rancho Del Cielo for the signing of the Economic Recovery Tax Act.
These bills that I'm about to sign, not every page. This is the budget bill, and this is the tax program, but I think they represent a turnaround and mark an end to the excessive growth in government bureaucracy and government spending, government taxing.
Camp David was another sanctuary for President and Mrs. Reagan. The camp is actually a small U.S. Navy installation in Maryland, managed by the Seabees. President and Mrs. Reagan often invited small groups from the White House staff to accompany them and bring their families. The business of the White House also went on at Camp David. Just like at the ranch, President Reagan worked on speeches, personally answered public mail, and hosted heads of state. During his 8 years in office, President Reagan spoke to the nation more than 40 times from Camp David. In this gallery, museum visitors can learn more about both of these retreats, view some of the saddles and belt buckles Ronald Reagan received while in office, and even ride a horse with President Reagan in the hills of Rancho Del Cielo.
We have a ranch, which I miss very much. And I have a hunch that when this job is over, maybe I'll just go to the ranch and ride my horses and do the things that have to be done around the ranch. There's always a lot to be done.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this Inside the Reagan Library video. See you soon.